Good afternoon. Welcome to an Urbana Arts and Culture Commission meeting. It's the first one we've been able to have in the City Hall, in chambers, in 2 years. We've been operating on Zoom, and it's so wonderful to see everyone. Welcome back, everyone, and welcome to our new members. I assume you will do introductions later?
Yep, I will.
Okay. Well, are you doing the roll call?
I will.
Okay.
They're alphabetical this evening. Commissioner Buckman is excused, and I have to give her a shout out. It's her birthday.
All right.
She's a very good excuse of not being here, so I hope she's celebrating. Commissioner Fuller? Yes. Commissioner Headland?
Present.
Commissioner Modica?
Present.
Commissioner Piniella? Commissioner Rose? Commissioner Sheen?
Here.
Commissioner Macon?
Here.
And you have quorum.
Great. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes of previous meetings. And for one reason or another, we have a few to approve. Can we do
have
them?
a little bit of a pile on because we had them move forward and due to quorum issues or other things. So we have December 14th, January 11th, and 18th. That's a special meeting of the presentations, and then your regular meeting, and February 8th meeting minutes. We can take them one at a time, which I think is advisable. Did anyone have any, is there a motion to accept or amend the December 14th draft meeting minutes that were uploaded?
I move we accept it.
Okay. Frank motion, anyone second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye. I think we don't need to do roll call
Aye.
anymore, so aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, that one passes. Next we'll go to January 11th. Do I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes as presented or any amendments? Did you motion to accept? Okay.
Second.
Commissioner Rose, seconded by Commissioner Modica. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? That motion passes as well. January 18th meeting, do we get a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Commissioner Modica, do I have a second? Commissioner Fuller, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, that one passes as well. And our last one is February 8th. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Shine. Commissioner, do I have a second?
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Fuller seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, that one passes as well. Thank you for getting us caught up on our meeting minutes. As far as I know, there are no additions to the agenda this evening. I do want to note that two presenters submitted a recording, and they were only afforded that opportunity because we had to move these this meeting a couple of times on those two folks. So that is Ralph Lewis and Mish Adeye. I'm going to be kind of pulling up some recorded video presentations from those two, and I put them at the end for that reason. So just a note, not necessarily in addition to the agenda. We also did not receive any public input.
You took the question right, you read my mind. Because sometimes we do get public input that's written in advance, right? Okay. So we are ready for presentations and a staff report from our coordinator, Rachel Storm.
Good evening, everyone. So nice to see you in person. This is your May report, although it must be noted that, as you all know, we have not actually met since February. So with that in mind, you're going to get a bit of information in this report. Brace yourself, buckle up, we'll get through it. Oh.
Good.
So for anyone just tuning in who didn't get a chance to hear me, I did mention that while this is the May report, we have not been able to meet as a commission for 2 months. So this is really more like 2.5 months worth of information that I'm sharing. So first and foremost, I need to welcome our newest commissioner, Mark Anthony Macon.
Welcome.
And I want to read this because I think it's a wonderful biography. So Mark Anthony is a native of rural Ohio. He earned his rhetoric and theatrical writing degree from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. He studied musical theater at NYU's Tisch School for the Arts. He is the author of 18 stage plays, a collection of short absurdist dramatic pieces, Under the Oyster Bar. He has written and workshopped, moderated, and consulted on a number of media outlets and companies, including Frontiers Magazine, Pretty Queer, MTV Networks, Nickelodeon, and Teen Nick, the N-Noggin, and Baby First TV. He has studied traditional Japanese tea ceremony for nearly a decade under Professor Emeritus Kimiko Junji, and studies Shoto calligraphy under Professor Emeritus Shozo Sato, with whom he currently is editing 2 books on Zen philosophy and aesthetics. His artwork has been exhibited domestically and abroad in such venues as Café Brut, the Art Museum Versailles, as well as the Art Space Brut. An outspoken advocate for outsiders, misfits, and the underserved and marginalized, Macon endeavors to celebrate and empower what makes each of us unique. I love this biography.
Welcome.
And I love all of yours that, both Commissioner Fuller, Commissioner Rose, and Commissioner Shine are all relatively new to our commission as well. And you got a Zoom introduction, but it's really a moment, I think, to see us all together in the same room and welcome you all as newer members of the commission, and thank you all who've been here also for a few months already for the tremendous work that you've done. So one bit of reminder, and it's a good segue into my next slide, is that we actually do still have one vacancy, and that's for our regular seat. We do have typically a 9-member advisory commission. So if you do know anyone that you would like to encourage to join our commission, think about, of course, perspectives that we may want to bring, experiences in the arts that we may want to shepherd here. So if you can, send them to me, and they can also go to this website, urbanaillinois.us/boards to apply. And then, of course, within the past couple of months, so also since we've met last, City Council did approve that we add a teen seat to our Arts Commission. So we will now have a student member of the commission between the ages of 14 and 18. So typically a current high school age student can join our commission as a commissioner with a possibility of renewal until they're 18, if they so choose. So that too is currently floating around, and if you know any young people you'd like to encourage to come join us, I encourage you to share that with them.
They have to be Urbana residents?
They should be Urbana residents.
Thank you.
Next up, you may remember that we are currently working on a hiring process for a program specialist. We have had some staffing changes in HR and some delays that have affected this search, but soon we will have more information there, and so we will be able to share more about the program specialist position, I'm hoping, by next meeting. And that person will have a 20-hour-a-week position working directly with me. And there'd be some flexibility with the number of hours per week, but that's sort of the average that we'd hope for. And we did receive a wonderful number of applications, over 50 applications. So I'm really excited to move forward in interviewing some folks. Another bit of good news, in the last month, we also were informed that we did receive the Summer Youth Employment Program grant from the Illinois Arts Council. So for anyone new, we have received this grant pretty consistently for the past few years. So I write it annually. The arts coordinator before me did as well, and we have pretty much always gotten it. I hope we continue to always get it. But this year we got a record amount of money as well, $4,500 that'll fund likely about 3 high school students to come work with us in the summer. Priority will go to an Urbana School District 116 student. However, anyone in Champaign County is encouraged to apply, any student. Students will assist in marketing, event planning, management, research projects, and ongoing initiatives. And if you are wondering, we have hired a USD 116 student before. So if you do know somebody that isn't in the Urbana School District, don't hesitate to encourage them to apply. Of course, we always are working directly with the arts grant recipients to support their work, to help market and promote the things that they're doing. A lot of things have been underway, but especially, thinking back over the past couple of months, I want to thank those of you who are also a part of our Sneak Peek celebration. Feels like a while ago already, but that virtual event that we held, which of course celebrates all of the recipients of the 2022 to 2023 Urbana Arts Grants, was wonderful, and I'm really thankful for the commissioners that were able to help make it possible. I want to also mention that we did have some other types of musical and art performative programs in the last couple of months. One is the Shamrock Academy of Irish Dance during St. Patrick's Day weekend, performing at Lincoln Square Mall to a pretty large crowd as part of the farmers market programming that was happening there, the Winter's Market. So it was a collaboration between the Shamrock Academy and the Land Connection for the Winter Farmers Market and the arts program. Of course, also April brought us Boneyard Arts Festival, and I mention this both in that we are an active participant. I serve on the Boneyard Arts Festival Committee representing Urbana, but I also work directly with a lot of our grantees to consider Boneyard as a potential place for them to premiere some of the things that they're doing. So we did have a really dynamic amount of programming just in Urbana especially, but obviously Boneyard Arts Festival is countywide. Between April 1st and 3rd. One of our grantees, for instance, held their Urbana Poetry Walk as part of Boneyard Arts Festival, where different poems could be picked up at our area businesses, and if you picked them all up, you would get a free book at the end. We also have a lot of upcoming events happening. The Rose Bowl kicked off their 100 events promoted through the arts program. This is another grant. Their Urbana Live programming is what they had funded, as well as a maternal health event for BIPOC for Better Birth that's starting off, as well as a call for submissions from the Champaign County Bailout Coalition of artwork that really talks about connecting loved ones with those who are incarcerated that are also parts of their family and friends, and what that communication feels like through art. So that's another open call right now, but we try to promote all of these things that our grant recipients are doing throughout the year. I have to mention that our major Boneyard events included Culture Fest. This was originally it was going to be outdoors, but we had kind of iffy weather that day, so we put it inside at the Independent Media Center. You can see here that we offered multilingual marketing for this, and also really tried to reach out to different community groups to co-sponsor and work with us on promotions. Here we have some images of Mondoro Rhythm Collective, Bloco Gaviao, which is an Afro-Brazilian drum line. We also had Los Tejanos, which is Tejano music, and their members are kind of from surrounding towns, a little bit outside of Champaign-Urbana. We also had a lot of participation from community groups, so the New American Welcome Center, the Park District, the library, HMD Academy. So many others had tables or other activities going on. In the upper left corner is actually a former intern of ours who's a visual artist, was selling her work. We had a member of the community do a design a bone for Boneyard activity with young kids. And we did have Joyful Bubbles there, as well as an exhibit of art that the IMC was promoting about basically really focused on immigrant artists of Urbana. Another couple of our Boneyard events included Boneyard exhibitions, one called Ramble On by Carol Allison. And this one was at the Urbana Free Library and is still on display, so you could go see her work. And the next, which you'll hear more about today from our grant presenter, is Jason Mack and Dream, their Dream Big glass art exhibition. And so Jason will show you some more photos in a moment, but here's some of our opening that morning with a meet and greet with the artists. And that display was really fabulous as well. So since we've met last, we also named a Youth Poet Laureate, Denilah Nash, and she has not only been engaged with some media interviews and things like that, but we also were able to do a celebration here at the city where she was able to get her certificate handed to her from the mayor. That's what you see pictured here. As well as many of you who came out and joined us for her celebration. And this was her inauguration celebration at Common Ground Food Co-op's back hallway, where we had our former commissioners, current commissioners, city staff, you see Principal Taryn Nance, and so many others came out to join us in celebration of Denilah. We also did some interviews and things with her that will be released in the coming weeks. But here are some pictures from that day, and I, of course, want to thank all of you who are able to make it out to events like these and help represent the arts program. Another one that we currently have on display, and I encourage you, those of you here with me in City Council chambers right now, to see this exhibit before you leave because it's coming down tomorrow. But Tamar Segev has had her exhibit inscribing memory here at the City of Urbana building in the hallways on the first floor. This is really a meditation on the Holocaust and memory and family ties and lots of different experiences that she and her family have been impacted by. It's a beautiful exhibit of work that incorporates kind of mixed media. So be sure to check this out before you leave this evening. Here's some pictures here of some of the work on display. I know I'm going fast, so let me know if I'm going too fast. Of course, I want to highlight a few of the public art things that have been going on recently. You may have likely heard of or seen that the Reading is Magic mural was completed. This was a community painting effort, and the community also designed this mural. This is funded by an arts grant from last year. And Langston Alston, who is Champaign-Urbana born and raised, but has since moved and lives in New Orleans now. He's a muralist, and he came back and was part of designing, and then, of course, led this effort around his artwork and having other folks help design and then paint it. Langston is a graduate from University Laboratory High School, and we love when he's able to come back to town. And he has done a number of murals in Champaign and Urbana. But what was really interesting about this one is that originally there was talk of a mural on one side of the building. Then it expanded to both sides of the building. Then they had made such good time with all of these folks coming out and helping. So many people had signed up. I think there were over 100 people signed up in different slots for over the course of a week, had kind of hour slots. And they made such good time that they ran out of stuff to paint. And so the library had actually moved this mural. It was intended to be at a building across the street from the library that the library owns, right there on the corner. And that building has some roof issues, and now it's going to be torn down, and so they actually had moved it to the township. But since they ran out of space, the library okayed them going ahead and painting on the original building, even though it is going to come down. And Langston and the community were all for that, so we got pretty much 3 murals out of one mural proposal, and they're wonderful and beautiful, and right now you can see all 3. You may notice a fence has gone up around the building, so that building is any day now going to come down. So be sure to go over and take photos and enjoy it while it's up, but that was another kind of extension of the mural project and a really great example of a participatory process for the community. Thank you to everybody who came out for the ribbon cutting that day. It was wonderful to have commissioners and city staff and anyone who could make it out to be a part of this as well. We had over 100 people come out to this ribbon cutting. It was really phenomenal.
It's a good turnout. There's Rachel taking pictures.
Of course, I also want to highlight the most recent mural opening, and I need to shout out Gonzalo as well, because he was a big helper on this project. But the Enacting Hope and Togetherness mural, now at Leal Elementary School, which will be hung in the hallways, was another participatory mural process by Patricia Leon Cuencan. And the project actually involved lots of families painting over the course of a number of weeks. The families, I think over 65 people total participating. And you could see here the ribbon cutting that we recently held at Leal Elementary School and the mural. I don't have the close-up photos of the mural, and I encourage you to go see it, but it does actually have images of the very people that signed up to paint it. So they were able to sort of paint their own likenesses into the mural itself. The very next in public art will be this week. We have a ribbon cutting and unveiling on May 12th at 4 p.m. Any commissioners, city staff, and community members who can make it out, we encourage you to come join us. I love to celebrate public art the same way we celebrate many other things that go on in the community. So we'll do a ribbon cutting and welcome this latest utility box mural. This utility box mural is at the Lake House at Crystal Lake Park, and the Lake House just opened for boating this past weekend. So really wonderful, very visible from both the street, the walking path, and the boat dock. So we encourage you to go check that one out if you haven't already. Now I need to just take a moment to recognize some forthcoming public art things because we have a lot going on. And part of it is that we wait for good weather, and we have good weather right now. So this is the moment where we start to really put in a lot of the things that we've had to wait to do.
So that includes a number of murals applied for during the pandemic that have had various delays for different reasons, but are really going to be put in the next few weeks. So you'll start to see a lot more public art action in Urbana in the next few weeks. One is Lisa Kessler's piece that'll be on the north side of 25 O'Clock Brewing Company, that building. Rafael Blanco is going to have his piece on the Urbana Adult Education Center. The Adult Education Center is moving, so it will be directly across the street from Urbana Middle School. You may know it as sort of the Comcast building, but it's the building that's actually closest to the street, so a very highly visible area. And that'll be, again, a participatory process where the portraits will also reflect the diversity of students that come through the Urbana Adult Education Center and some personal storytelling there. Broadway Food Hall is going to have a piece by Eka, and if you know Eka, you know she's incredibly creative with combining animation and 2D art. So it's going to be an augmented reality mural where you can hold your phone up and the mural will move as you look at it. So really phenomenal. I can't wait to see how it comes together. But that will be on the front of Broadway Food Hall. Christopher Morris is the next artist that will have a utility box mural in Urbana, and that will be next to Boneyard Creek Crossing on the corner of Race and Griggs Street, next to Mesquita Grill. And then we're going to be having a mural on the Rose Bowl by Kinsey Fitzgerald. And that one I particularly want to highlight the picture in the upper right corner because if you had missed it, this mural was made possible entirely by our former commissioner, Pat Salmon. So Patricia Salmon left our commission a little bit before, was it the fall? I think in the fall she left. And so she wanted to pledge to support the arts program on a continual basis, but the first thing that she's doing is funding this mural. So I wanted to recognize her for that at this meeting as well. And then we do have a lot of movement with sculptures. So I should say we're in a waiting place with the Public Art League, which is the organization that we collaborate with to put sculptures in the city. And they are in the process of changing leadership and moving some things around. So they haven't done their national call now between the pandemic and some changes that they're having for about 3 years. So with that in mind, we went ahead and renewed our existing sculptures, but if you know them, you know they've suffered a little bit during the pandemic with weather. And so all 3 of them are getting facelifts. So Peak Between the Trees, that's the one in the very bottom that look like birch trees. That's on Main Street in front of Crane. That one's getting a new paint job, so it will look very refreshed. It is supposed to naturally rust as part of looking like a birch tree, but it's rusted a lot. So we're going to give it a new paint job. Ice Pops by Craig Gray is also getting some repair and a new paint job, so that's the popsicles that are in Boneyard Creek Crossing. Those have been, they've struggled in the weather, so they're going to get a new sealant and look nice and fresh. Races by Bobby Joe Scribner, that's the bottom right. That piece is in front of the Urbana Free Library. That piece was renewed by donation from Eric Robeson, so I want to acknowledge him here today. He has an interest in potentially renewing it annually. I'm hoping he's still interested next year, and we discussed that. But the one thing about sculpture rentals is that if you renew and renew and renew and you've eventually paid for the sculpture, you just have it. So we've also talked about maybe a permanent location for this piece. It works on a number of levels, but one of the things that we liked is putting it along the race route so people could actually race with it during the Illinois Marathon. And that we've talked about putting it in front of the city building. So that may move to out here out front on the corner where it can be seen from the farmer's market and that sort of thing. What is the Good is going to get a little bit of a facelift too. That's Greg Stallmeyer's piece out in Boneyard Creek Crossing. And then I do want to quickly mention that Disability Aware Cities is a grant that we received with the Krannert Art Museum and PACE Illinois to promote disability in the arts and really understanding the experiences of folks with neurodivergence or disabilities of various kinds. And one of the aspects of it is we're going to have these sculptures that can actually invite people's oral histories to be recorded. And so those sculptures will also be put around town. More on that when I have it, but that's something that we received, I think, in the amount of $15,000 from the University of Illinois to support that project last year. And what's really unique about it is it's also helping build relationships between PACE consumers, between the students who are now part of a disability studies minor, a very landmark new program at the University of Illinois, and of course, Krannert Art Museum and the Arts program. And then I do mention here the AARP Community Challenge Grant. That was what funded our Growing Community Initiative this past fall. I did apply for it again, so keep your fingers crossed. I'm supposed to hear back any day now. They said mid-May. And I did apply for an expansion of our utility box mural program that would specifically promote artwork by artists 50 and older. So that's another program that hopefully we'll receive funding for, and you'll see more about. The Great Art Doors recently juried, so we will have a number of new sculptures just through this program. They're only on display from about June until, late May, early June, until roughly November when the first frost comes. And that is the sculptural program that we have in our parks and community gardens. So we'll have a total of 6, because we're adding one here in front of the city building, a 6th location again. But we'll have a total of 6 in Urbana, 5 in Champaign, and together they make just for a wonderful way to get out and see art in different neighborhoods and communities throughout Champaign-Urbana. It's also an example, I think, of a number of really interesting collaborations that emerged during the pandemic between the two cities and the university. I have to mention a recent Theremin musical performance that we also sponsored with the Robert E. Brown Center for World Music and the Independent Media Center. Rob was able to perform a really unique and interesting show. This is an example of some musical programs I've been trying to maintain in the absence of us continuing Art at the Market and some of the other regular musical programming we've done in the past. And then Poems Across Urbana is our very next Young Artist Studio. For anyone unfamiliar, Young Artist Studio is our monthly free art lessons for kids 5 and up, led by different artists. We try to really represent the arts in its full diversity as well. So this one is about creative writing, and will feature Janelle Davenport Pleasure. And then I like to mention anytime I'm also representing the arts program at different events or guest speaking engagements. So I'm just trying to think of a few of them that have occurred in the last month or so. Entrepreneurship Making the Cut was one that we did at Champaign Public Library to really talk about how do we make sense of grants and understanding applications, how do you get into markets as an artist, but really it was an opportunity to talk to artists about what people in my position tend to look for when we're soliciting calls for submissions. And then I did participate in the 25th anniversary of Inner Voices Social Issues Theater as a guest speaker. That's a really phenomenal theater and social justice program at the University of Illinois. And so I was able to also represent us there. And in general, was invited to be part of the a mayoral caucus presentation to mayors of the largely the suburbs of Chicago and Chicago to talk about the Growing Community Arts Initiative that we did with the AARP as a model program for thinking about community engagement. So all of those things were kind of recent, and that's the end of my presentations. I usually take any questions you have about anything here. I know it was a lot, but I wanted to catch you up on some of the more obvious things that we did in the last few months. There's been obviously a lot of other things. We've been applying for grants and programs. Managing the grant program takes quite a bit, but that's then the primary events. Any questions or comments about the presentation?
It's impressive, all the things that you listed off. How do you keep up with it all?
Help and collaboration. I think that's been really key is some of the things that, like I said, that emerged also through the pandemic that I really value are those collaborations between Champaign and Urbana and the university kind of all working together. I think that's beautiful. So those have been some of my favorite collaborations as of late. Other questions or comments? All right, we can move on.
Great. So I give you time to sign, I guess you are signed out. Good. So we are excited about having grant presentations. Our first presenter is Dr. Amy Rickman, Shaheen, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Shaheen Shorish, and Sophie Hall will present the final report for the 2021 Urbana Arts Grant, We Are the Resource Critical Style Showcase. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Let me just get this set up. Okay, so can you see the image? Is it showing up on your computer?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, we
Technical-
all have screens here.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody. I am Amy Rickman. I appreciate Dr. Storm and the commissioners welcoming me here today to report out on our grant. I was told to spend around 5 minutes in a brief presentation, and so I'll go through things quickly. Of course, you have my final report, and if you have questions, you're welcome to ask them along the way or at the end. One thing I do want to correct before we start is that we were a 2020 arts grant recipient rather than 2021, and so that might clarify some of the changes that I talk about. Okay, so We Are the Resource ended up being a zine, which is a handmade magazine. We initially had proposed to do a fashion show where we critically considered increasingly normalized surveillance technologies in our communities, both at a widespread global level, but also as it manifests locally. We had proposed to have micro-interventions of fashion to draw attention to the outlandishness of this normalized surveillance that we are part of and that is part of our lives. Our grant was a 2020 grant, and shortly after we got the good news that we received the grant, COVID began. So we're very grateful and thankful to be able to work with Rachel Storm in figuring out a way to transition to another format. In doing an arts grant, this is my second arts grant, and it's a great honor. And I know as a longtime resident of Urbana that cherishing people in Urbana was the most important thing. We wanted to do art in a way that did not in any way put people in more peril than they already were in. And so we ended up doing a zine. We very much wanted to do something ephemeral. We didn't want to do something that was documented, but this was the best that we could do. And we were excited about the opportunity to take our idea and put it into a physical format. And so we did. The zine turned out to be a beautiful manifestation of what we envisioned. We were interested in giving resources to the community, both of how you do zines, but also of how you could learn more about the surveillance that's going on around us by letting them know more about legislation, different readings that are available at the Urbana Free Library. But also we very much wanted to have our art be jarring in a way that knocked people out of the numbness that we all had to feel in order to make it through the pandemic, in order to make it through the last few years. And so we put a lot of attention into thinking about beauty, thinking beyond having to explain everything, which is hard for me. I'm a professor, and so I wanted to be sure that everybody understood every part. But we worked together and really worked hard to try to make something visceral and beautiful, and including that we have actual tassels that you'll see there on the top middle that we put in each zine. And of course, the zine, we made sure that we attributed it to you and to the sponsorship that you gave us. The zine, it was completed at the end of last year, at a time when, again, COVID was very high, and we did not want to have a release and gather people together to distribute a zine when it could put them at more risk. And so life has gone on, and we are looking towards having a release this spring. And we're talking with Urbana, with different people in Urbana to do that. But until then, we made flyers of different pages of our art and put them around town in Urbana. Here you'll see the Common Ground Food Co-op, Art Coop, and of course on each of these posters and flyers we attributed your generosity with that. We also, in making the zine, made sure that we supported local Urbana businesses. So we went to the idea store as much as we could. Rather than ordering things online, we wanted to keep the money in our community. We thought that was very important. And part of our process in talking about what we were doing here very much centered that. So I was asked to give a few words about how it went. Overall, we were very pleased with our work. We were really grateful to be able to have a reason to think about art during the last few years. It was a very challenging time. And being able to come together and think on that level was difficult, but so important. And so we were very grateful. And we think that zine achieved our goals. There were a number of obstacles, of course. We were trying to do an in-person event at a time when we were living through a literal deadly pandemic. And so trying to figure out how we could still keep the integrity of our plan and cherish the people of Urbana was a big challenge. Also, one of our members in our collective is Afghan, and so her family was facing a lot, she has family in Afghanistan, and so we were dealing with geopolitical brutalities where us coming together and working helped us through in many ways, but it was hard to think about art in many times. Future direction, I have approached, I reached out to the IMC's zine library a few times. I haven't heard back. I know that they're also figuring out when they can be open and what might happen, but we're hoping to have the zine there. We will do a zine release when the time is right. COVID has come down now, and so we're looking to setting that up, hopefully before the next wave. We're continuing to make art around this theme. Some of the art has been shown locally in an art show. I will be submitting some of the art to an academic edited collection that's looking at surveillance art this week, actually. Some of my colleagues in anthropology and other areas are very excited about the zine and are sharing it with their students in classes. And I run a youth and social media research lab where something like this will be discussion that we integrate in looking at research on these areas in different ways. So I want to also state that one of the impacts of this work was that we were able to herald and celebrate a local artist who passed away in 2020. We received the grant in 2020. And Angie Heaton, a beloved musician, longtime Urbana native, this was her musical home. She passed away in October 2020 from cancer, far too early. She came up with the TSURST hashtag, if you know that. She came up with that. So she is a local legend, a wonderful singer-songwriter, and we were able in our zine to honor her just a bit as part of this, and so we were really pleased to be able to have that opportunity. But beyond that, this art allowed us to support one another at a time that was very, very challenging. And I really wanted to make sure that that was known. I think it's not often thought about how funding or different opportunities to work across groups can help strengthen people during normal times and hard times. And this grant definitely brought us strength during a trying period. And I want to thank Dr. Storm, Rachel Storm, in meeting with all grantees over the course of the pandemic settling in, not knowing what might happen. She was not only clear in communication, but she was caring, and she made things very understandable. And so we had options and knew how to go forward. It was a time when things were just so confusing, and Rachel did so much to make us feel stable, and it was invaluable. She is exemplary in her work. We so appreciated being able to work with her and being able to do this art. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome, thank you.
Questions for Dr. Rickman?
Do you have a copy of the book on file here? You have a copy?
Oh, I actually did bring one to show. I'm not going to, we're going to have the release, and so I'll pass this around, but yes, you'll see that there's a tassel. We wanted people to be able to feel something nice, but also the colors, having color was very important to us, and so it was more expensive than we had initially planned to do it in person. But yes, so I'll pass that around to
Great,
share.
thank you.
Yes. Other questions? Thank you. Thank you. We're very pleased. And again, it was a gift to be able to think on this level during a very difficult time.
I mean, I simply need to sing your praises because like many grantees, I think it was so challenging in these last couple of years to figure out how to move forward, especially those who applied in 2020. When we were applying in 2021, it was still so like, can we or can we not? You know, what are things, but at least, you know, folks applied knowing that there is a pandemic to navigate. In 2020, it was a completely different situation. And so the adaptability of grantees like yourself, being open to thinking about new formats, I can't tell you how invaluable that is. I mean, I did meet with many grantees, and for some it was really hard to think about how could I move this I mean, because it's personal artwork, you know, and it's certainly not, in my interest to tell people how to do their work, but, you know, to be able to strategize and think about other ways to still take the same mission and move it forward, even if it needs to take a very different format. I think this is one of the grants that really truly did need to take a pretty extravagantly different format, but you still achieved what you set out to do. So I'm just very pleased and thankful for your flexibility and so many grantees that were able to show that. I think we were made better for it.
Thank you. And again, to you, allowing us that space to do it. One of the challenges we had was that the place where we had proposed to do the fashion show was no longer open. They might reopen, they might not. We wanted to still support them and not take it away from them if this was something that they were able to do. And so we wanted to wait and see to be able to support and hold space. And that wouldn't have been possible if that wasn't institutionally given to us, which was so important. So thank you. It's no small thing to have that sort of leadership that Rachel Storm demonstrated, and it was very important leadership. I want the commission to know.
And many of our commissioners helped create the guidance and stuff as well, and we're part of that conversation. So I think that's meant a lot to grantees. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any-
We'll keep passing it around, and then we'll bring it back to you at the end.
Sounds great. Any last questions? Thank you so much to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
So, just a note, Barbara, I did hear from Gina, she will need to move to next month.
Okay. Okay, so then we have Jason Mack ready to, from Mack Glass to present the final report for the 2021 Urbana Arts Grant, Glass Art. Welcome, Jason Mack.
Hi, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Let me pull up. I'm going to just start with the video so you guys can really get the full picture. So I teamed up with the DREAM organization. That's an acronym for Driven to Reach Excellence in Academic Achievement for Males. And so I had between 7 and 9 students, ages 13 to 18, and I hosted glass blowing workshops for them. So we learned how to make glass at a benchtop torch. And so what I focused on with them equally is design, craftsmanship, and then also that we focused on was learning to market and sell your artwork to your peer groups. And so we would design, so they would come into my studio and we would do a little sit down. We would do design ideas, and they would come up with lists of ideas of things they could make, everything from pendants, jewelry. One thing that turned out to be one of their main products they got excited about and found fairly easy to sell was croc buttons. So I don't know if you're familiar with these. I'll show you a picture of one. But just things they basically button into your Crocs. So Crocs are very popular right now among this age group and demographic. So they would make these, basically they're kind of like marbles. They have a flat backing on them that kind of pop in there, and so they would make these, and then they would sell them at school, and they would talk to some of their friend groups. So it was really it was fun to watch them get excited about designing, making, and then also when they would start to make some money, they got really excited about it, and they would come back with even more motivation to make more things. So I'll show you here, and then here's some of the pendants. And so yeah, the class was very successful. We met for 7 weeks, twice a week, so there's a total of 14 classes. And pendants, yeah, and you saw those. So everything, it was very well. Went very successful. Some of the challenges were halfway through, maybe 2 or 3 of the kids decided it really wasn't for them. So keeping some of the kids engaged was difficult, and then other kids, you couldn't even get them to stop. They just wanted to stay and continue to make more work. Especially this boy here, John Smith. He would come to the workshop he was keeping notes on his phone. He had a list of 20 different ideas he wanted to get to, so we couldn't even get to all his ideas. So we're actually talking, we're actually in discussions and with Rachel too about him applying for his own grant to do some new, to create something glass related, make his own maybe installation that would be just displayed at the Urbana Public Library. Yeah, that was a really cool one. He would start designing. So sometimes they would come in with a shirt, and you can see his shirt's got roses on it. So sometimes I'd make a recommendation to him, like, why don't you make something that matches your shirt? And then he would be like, oh, that's a great idea. And then kind of, he really nailed it. It's swords. So yeah, they just came up with so many different ideas. It was a lot of fun to. It was
Last one was Pac-Man, right?
yeah, that was a Pac-Man. Yep, and then this boy Tajay wanted to make a spinning top, so he made a top that spun. And then a couple of the other kids made them, and we had a top spinning competition to see who could get their top to spin the longest. So his went for a while. That was a fun little project too. So are there any questions? Is that 5 minutes?
Well, Jason, I want to invite you to say a little bit about the exhibit. 'Cause I
Oh.
left that for you. I didn't say too much during my presentation.
Yeah, I'm sorry I don't have any. You actually did show a picture of it to begin with, but then so then we actually did for Boneyard Art. I built or put together a display at the Urbana Free Public Library, and so in the case it was primarily these pictures that I'm showing you here. So the back of the case was all pictures of the kids at work, and then in the front of the case I had a bunch of examples of what the kids actually worked on. So everything from the crock buttons, pendants, marbles, and so yeah, I was with how large the case was and how small the things we were making, I was a little concerned about filling up that large case, but with all the pictures and it really came together nicely.
Where did you do all this work?
In my studio, yeah, I work out of a 2.5 car garage, and all the kids with the Dream organization, they're based out of the First Presbyterian Church, downtown Champaign, so it's only about a 6-block walk. So the kids would all meet at the church, and then they would just walk over to my studio. And one of the group leaders, a staff member with the Dream organization, was always present with them. So they would just walk the group of kids over from their meeting point at the church to my studio.
Nice.
I want to share a couple of things about this project that I think are really notable. I love that the project incorporated helping young people also see like art as a future career for them, and thinking about how do you market, how do you actually take art and move it in that direction of finding out what is something that people might want to buy, or these are really important questions for people that want to be visual artists as a career. So I think that is fabulous part of this particular program. And being part of Boneyard Arts Festival is so monumental, because I don't think have enough young people always exhibiting as part of these like bigger festivals or things that we do. So that was a particular aspect of this that came together that I was really grateful for. And as you said, that work of also mentoring young people and helping young people know about things like arts grants and that they too can create exhibits. I think that's really a wonderful part of this program in particular that I enjoyed.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And I think there were a lot of like really good seeds planted in the kids' mind. Just the notion that you can learn a new skill, you can use your creativity to make something with your hands, and then turn around and actually make money from that, make a living doing that, to get a livelihood from doing that. That's just something that's planted in their minds that I think will grow later, and who knows what that will lead to. I mean, my entire glass career my full-time job started with one glass bead making workshop I took. So that was when I was 17 and 38 now, so I've been doing it for 20 years now after that one class.
I'm just wondering if this is a kind of program that could be scaled up. Can it be duplicated? Can it be replicated? Can you do it? And would you have an interest in doing it again?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and it definitely can be. One of the limiting factors now is we'd be getting a bigger studio. So I've got working out of a 2.5 car garage, so it would be, getting a larger studio. I did very briefly move into the Lincoln Square Mall and set up 2 torches. My first class and my only class there went very well, and then we ran into some fire code issues we couldn't overcome. So, so that's one of the main issues right now to scaling is a larger studio. Yeah. But there's plenty of interest. I mean, and there's plenty of interest. There's other grants available, and so.
Have you been out to see Roger Blakely's compound where he creates a lot of his artwork?
No, I haven't.
It's in East Urbana by the, just past the intersection of 130 and Main Street.
Mhm.
Just, if you're going east towards, towards St. Joe, then it's on the left-hand side.
Sure.
And he's got some of his sculptures out there. He created basically built everything to do his work out there.
Yeah, interesting. No, I would love to go talk with her and
Yeah.
do a tour of it. Yeah.
This is kind of connected to that other question, but can you share, Jason, what for you gained as an artist taking on a project like this?
Well, a couple things. It really honed in there was a learning curve teaching this age group, because normally I'm teaching college students to, retirees. Because I teach about three workshops a week at my studio, and it's usually always college students to retirees. And so this age group, there's definitely a learning curve appealing to this audience, but getting in, when the class really started to take off is when they were coming up with ideas that they got excited about. Because when I was first teaching them the things I make and the pendants, the beads, they were like, but then, so the first class, they were like, a little standoffish. There wasn't a lot of excitement. And then second class, they started coming up with some ideas with the crock buttons and the tops. They got really excited about spinning tops, stuff I wouldn't think they would get excited about. So then, so that was, the class kind of built, it kind of got more exciting as we went. And then when they started selling stuff, they started to get really excited about it. And it also kind of introduced me to this demographic and this age group, and they were all just such sweet, respectful kids. I mean, I was really kind of really pleasantly surprised how easy it was to work with them, and how just respectful and sweet they were.
Were there any things that surprised you that took off in a direction that you didn't expect?
Well, as far as the product design, that went directions I would have never expected. But then also the challenges in the class, one particular student, he was basically just kind of hanging out on a chair, falling asleep during one of the classes, and I made a comment he's staying up playing video games all night, and he was one of the older kids. He was 17, 18 years old, and then he was telling me the reason he was exhausted during class is because he's taking care of his 3-month-old niece, and he was up all night with a crying baby, and I was kind of taken back by that. So there was. Individual kids had a lot of, they bring a lot to the class that you wouldn't think about, or if they're not focused or they're tired or they're falling asleep. So struggling with that sort of thing was one thing and there was multiple instances where, the kids, their home struggles, they bring it to class, and it's hard for them to focus or even, get engaged with something else because there's a lot going on at home. It's everything from 18-year-old is taking care of staying up with a 3-month-old crying baby all night. So there was challenges of keeping him engaged with a lot of things like that. So.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. And I just want to note that we should probably move on just in case folks have other questions. But Jason, can you tell us where we can get in touch with you about any future work like this?
You can get my info from Rachel if you just Google search Mack Glass, M-A-C-K Glass, my website, mackglass.com. You can go there and email me through there. It's just mackglass.com. Please feel free to reach out. I would love to explore scaling this up and doing something more year-round.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we on number 4?
Yes.
Good. Welcome, Aisha. I'll try to pronounce it properly. Chiaramonte of Capoeira Angola Center, Illinois, will present the final report for the 2020 Urbana Arts Grant, Capoeira Angola, for the community.
Yes. Yes, so-
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So unfortunately, the format that I have my video, or the short video that I have, is not supported by this computer. It's only on my Mac, so I don't know.
Did Miranda say that you can switch it?
Yeah, he said, he didn't tell me that. He said,
I mean, we can see what it says, right?
let's see. No, this is not Mac.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, one thing I can do is, Aisha was able to share with me the presentation through Drive, so I can at least share it with our
Yeah,
commissioners
I mean-
after the meeting, so you can watch it.
I have it on my Mac, but I don't know if this is just too small to be able to be seen.
You can try.
Okay, if you would like. So, like I said, my name is Aisha Chiaramonte, and I am part of the Capoeira Angola Center here in Urbana. And we were so happy to collaborate with the Urbana schools, and we did Capoeira Angola for kids program, and it was wonderful. We were able to provide students the opportunity to learn this Afro-Brazilian art form through movement and music. And something that was really special this year is that we got to work with cross-category classes and traditional classes, which was actually really wonderful. We went there kind of just open to seeing what, at that moment, what the children wanted to do and at what level they were able to, and we were just kind of blown off of how much they were just open to learning. So it was just really beautiful, and I was able to catch a couple of glimpses here on the video. So I'll let you guys see the video really quick if. Yes.
What's gonna help to make the song? You're gonna need to hear the lyre, and the song's gonna come from the chord, what in Portuguese called cabaça.
So that was just a clip of some of the classes that we did. And I think in the beginning of the video, you were able to see some of the videos. The video, there was actually a picture of one of the students that, when we went in the classroom, he was like on his, just writing something on his, on a piece of paper, and he didn't want to engage. This is one of the cross-category special ed classes. And then he grabbed one of the instruments, and then he didn't want to let go of the instrument. And then later on, kind of just engaged in his own way, and we were able to celebrate that too. So it was really great.
Wonderful job, Aisha.
Thank you.
What questions do we have for Aisha and the Capoeira Angola Center?
Where are you located for the people who might be interested?
Yes, so we are currently, right now, well, we were located in the Lincoln Square Mall, and unfortunately with COVID, we tried to stick through it for a while, but we had to close our space through COVID. And right now, and then we just started doing classes through Zoom. So that was also an interesting thing. And I say that my husband became the virtuoso of Zoom, capoeirista. So we did that, and a lot of our students continue to support. And then just maybe a month ago, we started to come back in person. So we're currently right now at the IMC, renting space. They're doing one class a week in person, as safe as possible. So it's been a journey, but we've been here in Champaign, Urbana for 18 years now. So we've had the wonderful opportunity to be part of this grant several years now with the Urbana School District. So, and just as inclusive as the art form is, we were able to, not only teach with the music, it has the art, it has the language, and it was just being able to work with the cross-category classes, we were able to see that in place, how inclusive this art is. So it was quite wonderful.
And as Aisha shared, this has been a program in different variations that has received grant funding multiple years in a row, and it's often received our Arts in the Schools award because it's a fantastic example of melding together like the social cultural history lesson, the art lesson, the engagement portion, and then often having a portion where even families can come and see what youth have been learning in the school during daytime hours. That's a very special part of it as well. So I commend you for your work.
Thank you. We were unfortunately we weren't able to do assembly, so we because of COVID. So we normally at the end of the 4 weeks, the 5th class, we actually do a presentation and assembly, and that was really great because they were able to share it with the classrooms, but also with their families, the ones that were able to attend. So we weren't able to do that here, but maybe in the future it will. As things are better now, we'll be able to.
Wonderful work. Any other questions for Aisha? Congratulations.
Thank you. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Thank you, Rachel.
No worries at all. Now, I am going to be the person presenting the next two, because as I mentioned earlier, they are recordings.
So bear with me a moment. So the first one that I'm going to share was also a submitted, connect to the internet. I'm pretending that if I say it, it will just happen. Doesn't quite work that way. Okay, so this first recipient, Ralph Lewis from All Score Urbana, is presenting the 2021 Urbana Arts Grant All Score Urbana Community of Song Project. As I mentioned earlier, 2 of our grantees had were impacted by us having to adjust our schedule the past couple of months, and so I afforded them the opportunity to submit a recording if they needed to. So this, of course, did come to me a little bit longer than I expected. I will not be playing a 37-minute video for you, but I will play some clips of it so that you can hear Ralph talk a bit about the project. This is also a project that impacts Urbana School District 116, and it is a project that has been funded in a different variation by the arts program in the past as well. Make sure you can hear. I don't know. Barema, if you are nearby, can you help us sort out the volume question? I'm not sure. Well, I may need to forward to the slide parts then, which may make this presentation go a little faster, but what I will do is I will also share this with all of you commissioners as well for you to be able to watch it at a later time. So if we go a little further in, Ralph shares a little bit about what All Score Urbana is about, mentioning that it is a community engagement composition workshop that pairs young composers with seasoned musicians to encourage those collaborations and for seasoned musicians to perform new compositions from young people. It focuses on welcoming new ideas and people, supporting creative processes, and building local relationships. They focus on community engagement over outreach. Ralph has also mentioned that they had a number of achievements in the last year. They offered Urbana residents and interested people this free to the public opportunity advertised through Facebook, word of mouth, and listservs. They served 11 individuals' composition projects, culminating in a concert of 7 different works. They do a process where they coach, and they also workshop and work together with the people that are involved, both the musicians and the young composers, between September of 2021 to production in January of 2022. The recorded completed works that were written for teaching artists were presented in a concert hosted by the IMC as part of their Sounds Like community that's their ongoing Wednesday programming that was virtual during the pandemic through the Independent Media Center. And they paired it with art by local artist Sheila Perinas via green screen backgrounds. They collaborated with the Red Herring Poetry and Arts Community Celebration as well. So this was another grant-funded program through our former poet laureate, Will Rieger. So All Score Urbana actually was part of that commemoration of the Red Herring Poetry Group, Urbana's longest standing historical, well, I should say, it's no longer in meeting, but this poetry group that has the longest history in Urbana of any poetry group. And that was a wonderful program that I was able to be present at as well. They found that during the pandemic, people were likely to restart or retrofit old works as they were to create new ones. They were even more tired, busy, and had stretched attention in more than previous years, understandably so. Ralph mentions that past iterations included a completed project as one of the many ways that people could work with the program, but that the flexibility that they were able to allow in the virtual setting invited new, adapted, old, or previously unheard of projects collaborating together in a meaningful way. That the performances in 2022 in the IMC were the first were their first premiere performance since March of 2020. So for many musicians, of course, highly impacted by the pandemic, this offered another opportunity. For other participants, it provided a meaningful creative experience between programs and big life events. So this is one of the students, Teresa, and I know, Barbara, you've performed with her many times. Wonderful,
she's a wonderfully talented
vocal
mezzo-soprano.
performer. Yep, and so the video does include a full I've watched this whole video. It does include a full performance from her and some of the other compositions. So I'll be sure to send this to you because she has a mesmerizing voice that everyone should get a chance to hear.
She was a runner-up for the Cranard Arts Award this semester.
Wonderful. And then a little bit later, Ralph goes on to say, the highlight of the year program this year was Clayton Kennedy utilizing their teaching artist resources to enhance a project called, I'm not going to try to pronounce this, but sharing it, and then also with his son. He met with Dr. McAndrew, recorded the accompaniment, and then Ms. Alexander and Ms. Lutuma coached him on several times in vocal technique and Brazilian Portuguese diction. So Ralph goes on to kind of share some different examples of the works that were performed, different musical instruments that were utilized, different types of composition. This is some footage from the Red Herring event, another phenomenal singer that really, I think, blew the room away when she performed at the Channing Murray Foundation at this event. And you may have seen, I shared some video footage of it as well through the arts program. So the lessons that they learned was that past Zoom-based workshops were possible, keeping instrumentation and piano solo and voice. It was something that they could do. This led to smoother and more consistent production. They had a tighter and less expansive version of instruments available that may not have captured some composers' original intentions, but it inspired others, and continuing to rotate at least some of their instrumentation offerings was worthwhile. They continue to learn that all of us, participants and teaching artists alike, need more time, understanding, and flexibility during the pandemic. And I think as you'll see from a lot of our presentations, this is a theme. Art was both a lifeboat, and then also it's been difficult for people to really prioritize art in their own making or creative experiences with so much else going on. Ralph here is in the middle, and Ralph shares as part of this presentation that the fall they will be teaming up with Rose Bowl Tavern and Faith United Methodist Church to offer All Score Urbana live and in person. They got another arts grant recently to fund that. The activities will begin a 24-hour Compose-a-thon event and a concert at Rose Bowl Tavern. So it's, again, their project kind of shape-shifts each year and takes on a new kind of different version, and that's the new version, is they will do a Compose-a-thon and then have a concert. Workshops will be held at Faith United, and they will present a final concert at the of Urbana Residence Works. Ms. Alexander, Dr. Lewis, and Dr. McAndrew will be returning with jazz trombone composer, arranger Peter Tijerina, joining them as well. And I think that was largely the end. Here's just some information about how to find more All Score Urbana on Facebook, and they do have allscoreurbana@gmail.com. They also have a YouTube channel. They've got a pretty solid social media following where you can see them across a lot of platforms. So if you haven't checked out this work before, All Score Urbana was also a part of things like our Pandemics as a Portal to Change exhibition. And as you could see, good example of a grantee also collaborating with other grant recipients to help further the project. And that concludes that presentation. Any questions we want to put on the record for Ralph, and I'll be sure to pass them along to him.
I was just going to offer that Mike McAndrew is affiliated with the Faith United Methodist Church in Champaign. He's the organist and pianist there, and music director.
That's wonderful.
Those were his hands that you saw in the graphic, the opening graphic.
On the piano at the beginning. So if no further questions, I'll certainly send the full video for you to watch so that you can see it in its entirety. The performances are very compelling. We wouldn't have been able to watch the whole thing here today anyway, so I had planned to forward it to you. The next presentation comes from Mitch Adoye of One People Summer Arts Camp, presenting the final report for the 2020 Urbana Arts Grant One People. Now, if this does not play sound, we might have some struggles that are similar to the last one. We'll see. Maybe I'll try to download it and see if that helps. Okay. So this, again, is a recipient who has, One People Summer Arts Camp has actually received arts grants from us before. So multi-awarded group. Let's see. Help me out, folks. Where do I find downloads on this computer?
Up above on the right. You see where it says arrow?
There we go. Let's see if it plays sound now. No? Oh. Well, we need to sort these issues out in advance, I suppose, but we didn't know that sound wasn't going to be functioning.
Are there closed captions by chance? Sometimes they auto-generate.
Let me see.
Can you turn up the volume maybe at least?
I don't see.
It's on
Yeah,
the-
that
on
I've
the
done.
bottom
So I
left.
don't think we've got volume working with the MP4s on this computer. So we'll have to sort that out, but I have also watched this video a few times, so I can share. She does have some slide information later in here as well. But she goes on to describe that they had originally set out to do an in-person camp. If you're familiar with One People Summer Arts Camp, it's phenomenal. It's a completely free week-long camp. Every year they have a different theme, and the theme, I can't actually recall the theme for this particular one, what it was originally set out to be, but every year has a different kind of word as their theme, and they provide free dinner, all free art supplies, and they have usually over 100-some youth enrolled every year in this week-long camp, and it's phenomenal. Daily programming in the summer. So they weren't able to have their regularly scheduled program because of COVID. So what they were able to do was a virtual adaptation of the camp. Less attendees, but certainly still very impactful, using some of the same processes, but particularly focusing on digital art because they had to go virtual. So they did some things connected to kind of graphic illustration and particularly comic related, so creating your own comic strip type of thing. Really, really fun and impactful work came out of that. I don't know if we have any images to show. I don't think so. But I can send some images along to you as the arts commissioners of some of the comics that they made. But the young people participated that way. And while it wasn't exactly what their normal camp is, it certainly was still important for the people that were able to come. And we had discussed doing a exhibition of the comics, but it didn't come together for them to be able to do that this time around. But one thing that Michelle explains is that the program has actually continued to expand, and Michelle has actually moved out of town, and so she is going to be working with partners here and partners in her new location, and I'm forgetting exactly where, but to create actually a dual state program so that they will actually collaborate with each other, and the camp will continue, but we'll have a location here in Illinois and a location in the other state. So really great expansion of that program. It's continuing, and I've encouraged her to let the local partners know they can continue to apply, and seek grants from us to support this kind of program. I know that's not exactly the presentation that you would expect. That may generate lots of questions for you, but if you do have any questions, I'd be happy to pass them along to Michelle. And she was another person who worked directly with me to think about how she could adapt this program during this time of COVID, and did a good job with that too.
Where did it take place when it was able to happen in person?
It has been in different school locations, so in both Champaign and Urbana, it's moved a couple different times. But picture like 100 kids in a gym, like making lots of art, doing performance thing. I mean, all sorts of different things are explored. They did bucket drumming one year. They've done visual art. So it really is all over, but it's really wonderful. And they try to offer a little bit of something for everybody. All right. Well, if there's no questions, that concludes that presentation as well. And that's the end of our grant presentation.
Is there any new business that we need to address this evening?
There is no new business today.
Is it time?
Well,
Do we, you have a question?
I want to comment that I'm totally impressed by all these programs, but especially the ones that are engaging kids over time. It's not one-shot deals, but they're coming over time.
Mhm.
And they get some, look, I mean, in the Glassing, they got stuff. So they came in with nothing and left knowing that they could
Howard,
produce
make
something.
sure your mic is on.
Oh.
If you gotta click the button.
Ah.
There, now you are. Now
They, with the glass, they came in with nothing and they produced something. But in all the programs, I think that it's real important for us to keep paying attention to engaging the kids in our community because they grow in, But art's for everyone, but you got to start somewhere. And if you don't start when you're 20, it's a whole different experience than if you start when you're a little kid. I believe that. Of course, one of my daughters teaches at a community art center, so.
I value that so many of our commissioners have a connection with education, because I do think, and your advocacy around engagement for young people showed through our grant process and shows now, and I think it is really important. So I too value that, and I've noticed that all of our very many of our grant projects have really tried to either they're already focused on youth, or they've tried to figure out on all ages, but youth-focused component of the program as well, and I really appreciate that. Any other comments or questions related to anything you've heard this evening? All right, welcome Mark Anthony Macon. First meeting down.
Thank you all so much for having me. This is great.
So don't forget to promote our vacancies, folks, both for the Arts Commissioner vacancy, but also our teen seat vacancy. Also a commissioner, but specifically between 14 and 18. So at this time, I suppose we should get a motion to end the meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I don't believe there's any opposed or abstain. Have a wonderful evening.
We haven't heard that for a while, haven't we?
Thanks, everyone.